Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video, and in this one, I'm bringing you my 10.2 healer PvP prediction tier list, and I must preface this video with the fact that healers are getting catered to very heavily in 10.2. Pretty much every single specialization is receiving monstrous throughput buffs, quality of life enhancements, and most importantly, the biggest change right now for healers is that your medallion is going to be a 90-second cooldown down from 2 minutes. That's 30 seconds earlier. You're going to be able to escape from crowd control effects. So it has been very difficult to really assess and rank the healers so far because they are all getting such crazy buffs and changes to them that you should really be excited, honestly, to be checking out the role for 10.2. So let's get started here. Discipline Priest, the first one that's receiving a huge amount of changes. They're cutting down your keybinds. So if you're ever intimidated in trying this specialization in the past because it had a lot of keybinds, they're cutting those things down. They're making Schism a passive. They're turning Mind Blast basically into Schism. They're moving Power Word Solace. They're buffing the throughput on all of your damage and all of your atonement healing and all of your direct healing. Everything is just directly getting buffed. Now, my main concern with Discipline Priest as to why I would not necessarily rank it S tier, although potentially in Battlegrounds, if that's what you're looking for, it definitely could be. But PvP as a whole, I'm a bit worried about its mana. It seems to be one of the only healers really that, when it does run out of mana, it becomes really difficult to keep things going. And I think just for that fact that I'm keeping it down from the S tier, but with the changes made to it, it's going to be a lot more accessible for a lot more people. You can focus on that damage play style. So if you're a DPS player that really hates long queues, playing a Disc Priest is going to feel pretty much like a DPS, and it's going to be a lot more accessible now in 10.2, so it's definitely worth checking out. Preservation Evoker is receiving a lot of throughput buffs to its spells. Nothing spectacularly new that I have seen for PvP specifically. It's mostly Living Flame and Verdant Embrace are just getting more healing. I'm a bit concerned with Preservation Evoker because, again, it's limited range in terms of putting it onto S tier. I think exposing yourself to crowd control can be kind of dangerous, especially with the power of some DPS specs at the moment. So where do I really want to rank this, especially like Subtlety Rogue being as strong as it is? That's typically kind of like the direct counter to you as a Subtlety Rogue. I think you're probably going to feel like an A tier healer. You've got weaknesses, right? You got a lot of good qualities, but I think because you have some weaknesses, that's what's holding you from going up into the S tier, from what I can assess so far. Holy Paladin is pretty much the only healer that is receiving seemingly some nerfs. Particularly your mana regeneration is going to be, I would think, noticeably lower. They're targeting Glimmer's mana return. They're just targeting your baseline. Mana costs increase on a lot of your spells. They're also nerfing your Sanctified Plates, which I believe is an armor and stamina increase, which is your personal durability. So you're going to be a little bit less tanky, and your mana regen could likely be a bit more problematic moving into this patch. And similar to these healers, you can be really controlled easily by enemy casters and that type of deal. So I'm thinking Holy Paladin may be dropping a tier. If this was 10.1.7, I'd be putting it on S tier. But for this patch, I think that it could easily be falling down a tier. But I think all healers are going to feel really strong no matter what, with the buffs that I've seen to pretty much all of their spells. Now, Holy Priest, similar boat. You're just getting buffed on all of your heals directly. Now, I didn't see anything that was jumping out off the page that was really new for something similar to Disc Priest or a Resto Druid for this patch, and not really any significant nerfs, just kind of readjusting your talents, trying to make more builds possibly viable for you. So you may want to explore different talent combinations likely for this patch, but you probably still feel pretty strong. Some of the main strengths of this class are going to be Greater Fade, Dispel, as well as Spirit of Redeemer and Mass Dispel, as likely Warlocks are going to be really good in this patch. With the changes coming through for them, you're kind of the direct counter to that class, so you're likely to feel really powerful. You're also one of the go-to healers for Subtlety Rogues, which are looking really strong, paired up with Fire Mage likely. So my expectation is that they're probably going to feel pretty A tier, and I'm ranking all the healers really high because I think they are going to be really comparable with how much throughput they're actually getting in PvP in general. Now, Mistweaver Monk, you're seeing direct buffs to the Fistweaver build. Phalanx Stomp is getting like 100% damage and healing increase or something, and they really seem to be trying to orient Mistweavers around Fistweaving in PvE, which is going to have some direct effects on PvP. Mistweaver is going to have monstrous throughput. I saw buffs towards pretty much all of their direct healing as well. For these reasons, I think that Mistweaver is likely to feel really powerful. I'm ranking it a little bit of a cut ahead. I think that the being able to flex between a Fistweaver and a casted Mistweaver can make you just completely unstoppable. You're probably the best battleground healer, period. with the added mobility that you got to be able to escape from a team fight and then reposition to get somewhere else. You've got great cooldowns for your raid groups with Revival hitting multiple targets. And again, with Warlocks being so good, you're kind of like a direct counter to that. I think Mistweaver is going to feel absolutely phenomenal. Resto Druid is another one. They're changing Tree of Life dramatically. They're adding new talents that when you're in Tree of Life, you're going to summon Grove Wardens, and those Grove Wardens have been really OP, and they're actually getting buffed on top of everything else. So you're going to just be summoning more trees. Tree form is likely to potentially see a resurgence in this patch due to the fact that it's going to summon the Grove Wardens. Potentially even the proc Tree of Life may be worth picking up at that point to proc more Grove Wardens. And it's also going to make your Wrath, I believe, instant cast. So you're actually be able to cast and participate some damage, which previously would have been a little bit more difficult to do in that phase. So if you want to experiment with that, it's not going to be AoE damage, so maybe not so effective in a battleground scenario, but the throughput buffs to it, how powerful it currently is, it's likely to remain kind of like the best healer overall, I think. They're making changes to Heart of the Wild as well, which is going to make it really strong in 2v2 is my expectation, lowering the cooldown, increasing the effectiveness. So Resto Druid, as a standalone, is like probably the best healer overall, with maybe Mistweaver cutting a little ahead in battleground scenarios depending on what you want to do. Restoration Shaman, they are buffing up all of your heals. Your set bonus is directly focused around Riptide, which is likely going to feel really powerful. You're going to bring nice effects to battleground scenario, like Static Field Totem to move groups of enemies around. Grounding Totem is really effective with that many spellcasters that are likely to be viable. Healing Tide Totem for AoE healing and then hiding it behind pillars and the like. So you're likely to be really disruptive in that environment, but still, some of the main pain points of it are things like Earthen Wall Totem not being really visually effective. Now, you can use the new ping system to try and alleviate some of those pain points with Restoration Shaman, but I would personally like to see its animation updated. I actually was just playing Augmentation Evoker, and Blistering Scales had like a surprisingly good animation that I think could substitute as an Earthen Wall animation as well, or second as an Earthen Wall animation. I'd really like to see that increased on top of the ability to incorporate pings, but not having like a direct damage reduction cooldown similar to other healers or like a guaranteed get out of jail free card can get really stressful on Restoration Shaman. So for me, even though despite the Riptide buffs coming through, without those kind of like emergency measures where like, oh crap, like an oh crap button, I gotta recover, I need a big heal, or I need a bop, I need a big throughput here, it can get pretty tight and squeezing into those situations. And with Fistweaver being so good, these cleave compositions, Rep Paladins and Fury Warriors, I'm thinking are going to be really gnarly, and just running down a Shaman. And Demon Hunter is also going to be really good, but that could play into Resto Shaman's favor as well. Demon Hunter Balance Druid is likely to be really powerful with that combination. So if you find the right comp, I think Restoration Shaman is likely going to feel decent in those scenarios, but with the throughput buffs to everybody else and already their kind of niche desirable environments, and given that those comps are likely to be powerful and they're almost direct counters to some of the best DPS specs, I think Restoration Shaman is likely to feel a little bit inferior to the remainder of those. Now, of course, Preservation Evoker, this is one that maybe could drop down to B or A depending on the player and the given circumstance, because things like Rogue Mage are likely to be a really big problem for you. And that's likely to be really competitively viable. You're going to bring nice damage into battleground team fights, though, so I feel pretty safe putting it here. Every healer is going to feel really strong. It's just Resto Shamans with the poor visuals and not the kind of like last minute emergency measures that a lot of other healers get, is probably going to just feel a tiny bit weaker in 10.2. And this is my prediction as of now. If there's any changes or updates, I'm going to relay those to you guys in real time. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Your support's greatly appreciated, and you'll never miss out on an update. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.